Kadosh Boker or Bekiim Halacha 6, day 27, page 72. This is Siman 158. Right? Kuf Samichet Halacha Kav Daled. We're now talking about the halachot of the beracha. So yesterday we spoke about the halachot of Shifshufa Yadayim, right? And today we're going to be speaking about the halachot of the beracha. Achar shenatal yadav kol maniguv. So remember, after doing Netillat Yadayim, before the drying of the hands, Yivarech, you're going to make the beracha Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam. Right? We're on the top, yeah? Anachnu lemala. Right? Asher kedushan mitzvah v'tzivanu al Netilat Yadayim ve'af al pi she'enu ela miderabanan. Right? Even though this entire halacha is derabanan. Right? Which means, if you remember the Agdama, everything was derabanan. There's no doraitas here. So if there's no doraitas, what are you saying? Asher kedushan mitzvah v'tzivanu. So he says, שגזרו על זה משום סרח תרומה, מכל מקום שייך לומר על השם יתברך קידשנו וציוונו. He says, you could still say it, שכיוון שאנו מקיימים דבריהם מטעם הפסוק שאמר לא תסור מכל אשר יראוך. Meaning, we have a mitzvah to come and to fulfill and to listen to the divrei chachamim. So the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu came and he was the one that told us to listen to the divrei chachamim, when we are going to listen to the divrei of chachamim, so therefore we are being kideshanu b'mitzotav v'tzivanu. We are fulfilling the will of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore we're allowed to make the bracha of Asher kideshanu b'mitzotav v'tzivanu, even though it's only a rabbinical enactment. Okay? Are כשאנו מקיימים מצוות חכמים, אנו מקיימים מצוותו יתברך. So we are fulfilling the mitzvah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. וזהו, אשר קידשנו מצוותיו וציוונו. And therefore, that's what it means, that he's sanctifying us and he commanded us. When did he command us? He didn't command us in the Torah of Al Netilat Yadayim, but he commanded us in the Torah to listen to the rabbis. And once we listen to the rabbis, we're listening to Hashem. So therefore, it's אשר קידשנו וציוונו. וזה הטעם בכל הברכות ומצוות רבנן. And that's the reason why we're allowed to do this by all mitzvot Rabbanan. So for example, we're going to come and we're going to do Megillat Esther. And in Megillat Esther, we're going to say Asher K'Shalom Mitzvotav V'Tzivanu. And it's going to be a mitzvah Rabbanan. Or we're going to do all other types of Rabbanans. Even though it's a mitzvah Rabbanan, we are allowed to say Asher Kideshanu Mitzvah V'Tzivanu. The reason why is because once we're obligated to listen to the rabbis and we fulfill that command, so therefore that's why we're able to do that. So that's what's right, why we're allowed to say this. Ve'af keshenotel yado achat, questions afterwards. Ve'af keshenotel yado achat, urgon sheyado hashniya netuna begeves. The same halacha would even apply if a person is only doing one hand. Now you're going to ask me, why does he do one hand? You have to do two hands in Netilat Yadayim. He says, no, but for example, a person has a cast, right? They've got a cast, they can't do it, so he's still going to make al Netilat Yadayim. He's still going to make the bracha of al Netilat Yadayim, שזה בלשון רבים, ולא על נטילת יד, right? וכמבואר לקמן סימן קס"א על הקו זין. So therefore he's not going to do it. So therefore he still does the Netilat Yadayim, right? And he's not going to make the bracha of al Netilat Yad. He's going to do Netilat Yadayim. Right? He comes and he says, because it's going to be on, the bracha was on the entire, both the yadayim. ודין משותק שאינו יכול להזיז ידו אחת או שתי ידיו, וכן דין מי שנקטעה ידו, so the halacha that we just mentioned, if somebody has his hands amputated, or for example, he's paralyzed and he cannot lend, right, bar minan, or whichever the cases are, he's ba'er sham halacha, kaftet ube'ara sham. So we're going to learn it in Kuf Samech Aleph. Kuf Samech Aleph is 161. Okay, we're right now in 158, so we have to wait patiently as usual, because that's the way that halacha is, that we have to wait, and we're going to learn it later on in Siman Kuf Samech Aleph, halacha kaf zayin, or halacha kaf tet. Okay? Kaf hey, halacha kaf hey. Now we're talking about, please. Halacha kaf hey, nagu shelo levarech ad achar netila kodem aniguf. So we just said that the minhag is not to make the bracha until after the Netilat Yadayim, before the niguf. Now, 1 second. It doesn't make sense. Why? We have a general rule. What's the general rule? 1 second. What's the bracha on Netilat Yadayim? What's the general rule? You always make the bracha before, right? So therefore, if it's going to be over l'siyatan, so then you should make the bracha and then wash your hands, right? But you're not doing that. Why not? So he says, אף על פי שקיימלן שכל המצוות מברך עליהם עובר לעשייתן, מכל מקום, nevertheless, כיוון שפעמים הן ידיו נקיות, ואינו יכול לברך קודם, since at the end of the day the hands are not clean, and therefore you cannot make the bracha beforehand, לא חילקו בזה, they never made a differentiation, ואמרו, and they said that you always make the bracha אחר הנטילה. meaning, right, that you're always going to do it afterwards and not before. Okay, so that is going to be the general rule. Ve'od, there's going to be another answer. So the first answer is that since if your hand's dirty, you're not allowed to make a bracha. If you remember, this actually goes with the Zohar Kadosh. You remember we brought down that a person's hands should always be clean when he makes a bracha. And the Zohar Kadosh already brought this down, even to do with the bracha. So for example, I want to make it right now mizunot on the cracker, but my hands are dirty. I'm not allowed. You're going to say, yeah, but Rabbi, it's mizunot. You don't have to do Netillat Yadayim. Yeah, but your hands are dirty. When your hands are dirty, you shouldn't make a bracha. So therefore, I said questions afterwards, please. So therefore, right, what do we just say? So therefore, here with one of the first reasons, right, why Behemet we're allowed to come, right? No, give him a pen. Why always a knife? Give him a pen. Let him write down the questions. Yeah. So he comes and he says, right, a pen. No, but you give him a pen. Yeah. So he comes and he says like this. He says, yeah, one more time. He says that a person has to be careful. Why? Because since the hands are not dirty, you're not allowed to make a bracha. So if your hands are dirty, you're not. So don't make the bracha until afterwards, right? That's going to be the first one, right? Which is a very interesting. By the way, you should know that same halacha is brought down by Tevilat Ger, right? Usually, if you would say that Tevilah should be done beforehand. For example, we know that the famous Rav Ovadia Yosef, even though it's not the minhag of Morocco, right? But Rav Ovadia Yosef is that you should make the bracha, like Shitat Maran, before going into the mikveh. So a woman that wants to go into the mikveh, when does she make the bracha? Before going into the mikveh. Shitat the Ramah and Shitat, a lot of even the Recite and everything, and also the Shitat Morocco was the exact opposite. She goes inside, and once she's inside the water, now she's going to make the bracha. There's a whole question exactly, b'mayim, b'toch hamayim, right? Shel kacha ze yaminhag, shel kol הנשים. עכשיו, why? Why was it? It was a very, very simple reason. The reason why is because she needs to be pure. So therefore, what's going to happen is that what she does is, right, is there's going to be a difference of opinion how to do it, whether she does one dip and then she makes a bracha and then she does it again, right, in order to be Yosef Chova, all the shitot, right? But another thing is, for example, Tevilat again, when is he going to make a bracha? Before he does the Tevilah, he's still not a Jew. So therefore, he only makes a bracha afterwards, right? So the same concept is coming out that when a person is going to be, right, that it's going to be, right, to be purity. So that was going to be the first, right, the first of the opinions, right? The second opinion, the second reason, ve'od, shekevan shemevrei, by the way, you should know, somebody once gave a shiur, they said, they gave a shiur and it was very, very terrible because they went and there was a whole bunch of women, right? I don't want to mention who. And what happened was they went and they made a shiur, and they went and they said that if if a woman's coming and she's doing the bracha afterwards, it's wrong, right? And it's wrong. And you have a whole bunch of ladies there, and a lot of them are not even that religious. And now they thought, listen, they went to the mikveh, ki'ilu, like it was a big deal for them, and now you're telling them that they're wrong. So I went afterwards, and I remember I destroyed. I went, I destroyed the person. That's better, right? Huh? Which one? Chazak u'baruch, Chazak u'baruch. Right, the Rav Katzin uses a brain. Why? I remember it was once happened with it was Rav what's his name? The one with the pompon on his head. Rav the one that did a lot of. He's been very very quiet recently. The one that's done of okay, I forgot his name. The one that he was a lawyer by trade, but in Israel, speaks Hebrew only. Rav Amnon Yitzchak. I remember Rav Amnon Yitzchak came to Toronto, right? And what happened was that he came, he gave a shiur, and he basically was trying to get women to cover their hair, right? And basically he's coming and he's trying to convince women, and there are some of them, they're going to come. All of a sudden comes a rabbi, a smart aleck, right? He comes up, yeah, but according to Rav Yosef, they have to have kisui rosh. Well, what does it help that they're going to cover their hair if it's not kisui rosh? Somebody else was going to come and tell the rabbi, Yahmor, what are you doing? He said, do you know that even Rav Ovadia Yosef in Chutz La'aretz was mekel, that they should have kisui, that they don't need kisui rosh, so they could have a peah? Right, that I heard of Mifurash from Rav Yudon Yunaim by other Gdolim. Right, why? It does not make sense that you're going to go for all or nothing. Religion is not all or nothing. Even if a person does not have a kippah in the street, have a kippah in your home. Have a kippah in a place. Why? No, if I don't do it all the time, it's all or nothing. Yeah, but it's not all or nothing. But the concept though is it's not all or nothing. So if it's not all or nothing, don't come and you're trying to be machzir b'tshuva, and they're going to tell you, listen, you tell a woman, it's either you're going to put on this snoot or this mappa, this whatever it is, this whatever it is on your head, right? Or whatever it is, right? Or if not, nothing. Chas v'shalom, right? You come and you're going to actually come and you're going to do it, and that's all that it is. So very, very important. So the same thing, you never put down what a person is doing because whatever they're doing is very, very important and they've got Yisodato B'Arei Kodesh. So you should know the ones as they say they should do the bracha inside with the Shlach Kadosh. There's a whole list, right? The Shach and the this and the that. And like what Rav Katzin said, even if I don't do a bracha, if a woman goes to the mikveh with a bracha, is she Yitzeh Chova? For sure. You think the bracha is ma'akev? Bracha is not ma'akev. So the same thing. You understand? So therefore, a person should always have their enaim birosho. Enaim birosho means always have your eyes in the head, realizing what are they doing. Exactly. Yeah, he's got arba enaim. Yeah, fine. Right? 1 minute. But I was the one speaking, not everyone else. 1 second. Yeah, 1 second. So now says the halacha, right? Now he says as follows, right? Ve'od, there's going to be another reason. What's the other reason? שכיוון שמברך קודם הניגוב, נחשב עובר לעשייתן, שעדיין לא נגמרה מצוות הנטילה, עד אחר הניגוב. Another reason. You didn't finish the mitzvah. When is the mitzvah? 1 minute. So when exactly do you finish, right, the mitzvah? Well, you only finish the mitzvah until after the niguv. So for how are you going to make the bracha beforehand? You didn't finish the bracha. Now, this is comparable to what? To the Brit Milah. Why? There's a minhag Yerushalayim, right? And all of a sudden everyone became Yerushalmim, right? And I actually disproved a lot of people with this because they don't realize even that it's not Shitat Maran, right? That basically what they do is, right? They always speak about Tefsek and Pasek and everything. All of a sudden they make the bracha of Brit Milah and they already forget about it. Then the Moel comes and he does the Brit Milah. And after the Moel comes and he does the Brit Milah, finally the father of the Ben now comes and he does Sheikh Yanu. So I remember I was by someone and it was Tunisian. And I went and I told the person, I went and I said, by the way, why are you doing that? No, that's what we have to do. I went and I said, did you see Maran? Maran Mefurash in Ilchot Milah says that the bracha is done after the chituch. Why? It's done after the chituch, before the priyah. Which means that what you do is after the mohel cuts, now you do the bracha. And that is Maran Mefurash. So I remember I showed it to this rabbi, and this rabbi said, okay, fine, you won me. Why? Because he was always saying that we do like Maran. We are doing like Maran. So the minhag of Morocco and Tunisia was like Maran. I don't know what was the minhag of the Chalavim. If they did like the... Which one? Ala Milah and then what? No. But when do you do the bracha? No, not the Shechianu. No, Shechianu is afterwards. After Shechianu is after. No, but the bracha of the Aviyah Ben. Because again, nowadays minhag Yerushalayim is that they do it before. They do it afterwards also. Don't think what they do here. Think of what they used to do in Chalab, or think of your father, grandfather. Meaning, think of what it did. Because again, if you're going to do it nowadays, they're going to tell you, they're going to say this was a minhag. It wasn't a minhag. They changed everything, right? They changed everything. You understand? They changed a lot. So you have to look into what is the minhag of Chalab. Okay, so therefore, one more time, Shechianu is according to everybody they do afterwards. But when do you do? They do it afterwards. Yeah, for sure. They do it afterwards. Says like this. Now we're going to come and we're going to do the footnote. Everyone pay attention to the footnote 23. It's a long one. Okay, pay attention to today's footnote. There's going to be 2 reasons why we make the bracha after the washing the hands. So one more time. We've got a general rule. Over l'siyatan. If it's over l'siyatan, do the bracha beforehand. Why are you going to do it afterwards? Says the Tosafot offer 2 reasons for postponing the reciting the bracha until afterwards. Finding a precedent for such a practice, they said the Ri, right, who ruled that those Ashkenazic women who say the bracha of the mikveh only after they have immersed themselves can be excused for doing so. He explained that when a non-Jew immerses in a mikveh to convert to Judaism, it is impossible for him to recite the bracha before. Therefore, he says the bracha afterwards. This is an exception to the general rule that bracha is going to be done. Since we see that it's possible that in some cases the bracha, they do the bracha afterwards, so therefore they made a general rule, you always do the bracha afterwards. Meaning, somebody said before, yeah, but that's a ger. No, since the concept of the gerut happens afterwards, so therefore from then on, all the chayavet tevilot, they do it afterwards. That's what the Ri comes and he says. So you already see, right, one of the reasons why they would do it inside the mikveh. Afterwards. Why would they do it afterwards? Because they don't want to be mechalek ben tevilah letevilah. She said, no. Tevilat ger is one halacha. Tevilat nashim is another halacha. They didn't want to be mechalek. So therefore, they don't make the differentiation. Okay? This is a Ri. You're arguing on a Ri. Lo mashane. You could argue on everybody. That's the problem. When it comes to the mitzvah of Netillat Yadayim as well, when it comes to the mitzvah of Netillat Yadayim as well, Tosfot noted that sometimes a person is incapable of making a bracha. Why? his hands are dirty, or he just relieved himself, his hands are not clean. So what is he going to do? So in such a case, it's possible to say the bracha till after Netillat Yadayim. So we have a basis to say that in every case, you also do it. Meaning, right now your hands are clean. So according to the Chachamim here, that they're going to come and they're going to tell you that what? That listen, the hands are clean. So his hand used to tell me, Zalacha Aleph is that his hands are clean. Zalacha is number 2. So therefore, right? So therefore, doesn't make sense. So the Tosfot comes, right? And again, obviously we're with Balei Tosfot, the Rishonim. Who am I to argue on a Tosfot? Yeah. So he comes and he says, he offered a second reason for this anomaly. He comes and he says like this. Yeah. He comes and he says, since the Talmud states that anyone who eats bread without drying his hands is considered to be eating impure bread, the mitzvah is not completed until the person dries his hands. Therefore, as long as he says the beracha before drying them, he fulfills the requirement, which means that at the end of the day, he's not allowed to have his hands not dry. He has to have his hands dry. So therefore, it's still part of the mitzvah. Tosfot and Berachot, they only bring the first reason for the halacha, right? Which is again basically the concept of the tefillah. Then he comes and he says, for the right, well, the Gemara, the Tosfot and Sukkah, they cited the second reason. The Rosh added, right, and the Mordechai both bring both reasons. The seven mitzvot katan, right, the Samak, the Ham, the Pardes, Orchul Chaim, Shibula Leket, they come and they all cite the second reason only. Yeah? Fine. Next one. What about reciting the bracha after washing with more than a revi'it? Right? Maybe it's enough just to do it after more than a revi'it. So Maran and the Bet Yosef quotes the Mordechai in a Sefer Mitzvot Gadol that if someone immerses his hands in the mikveh to fulfill the mitzvah of Netillat Yadayim, he does not have to dry his hands before eating. Maran explained that this is because the case of the water in his hands never became tameh. So he then added that the halacha is the same for someone who pours a revit or more than water on each hand, right? The water in his hand does not become tameh. So the Rishon LeZion came and he pointed out that nowadays, since we have running water in our homes, we always wash our hands with plenty of water, certainly more than a revit. So therefore, we complete the mitzvah of Netilat Yadayim even before we dry our hands. So we are going to come, Rebbe, because we've got such a thing. So he says, if we recite the blessing after the washing, therefore we feel to fulfill the principle of reciting the bracha before completing the mitzvah. There must be some other reasons then. Why do we do this then? So the Bach comes and also Rav Shlomo Lulia, this is Marshal, he disagreed with the ruling of the Shulchan Aruch. They ruled that although someone who immerses his hands in the mikveh does not need to dry them, someone who pours a ravit on his hands does need to dry them. In fact, the Levush ruled that one must dry his hands even after the mikveh. He argued that the reason for drying the hands is that eating bread with wet hands is a bad etiquette, and therefore it's necessary to dry them. Meaning, do you say it's because of tum'ah, or do you say it's because of bad etiquette? If you hold bad etiquette, so it's always that. Meaning, it's always derech eretz to come and to dry the hands. Okay? The Rishon LeZion suggested that our present day practice of saying the bracha after washing, right, even though we pour more than a revita on each hand, is based upon the poskim rule that even in a case when one is obligated to dry the hands before eating, even according to the ruling, when there's no obligation to dry one's hands, we apparently rely upon the first reason of the Tosfot and the Rosh, that the general rule is we always make the bracha afterwards in order not to differentiate. So here, the Rav Yosef is also agreeing. And he's saying, like the first reason of Tosafot, we do not want to differentiate whether you're doing it with a lot of water or not doing it with a lot of water, right? All these things. Meaning, we don't make the chilukim. Once there's halacha, Gemara, you say, no, if his hands are clean, hands are dirty, if he's tvilat ger, tvilat, we don't make those differentiations. It turns out, right, that's Tosafot. So it turns out that we have a sfek sfeka to permit saying the beracha, although one has already poured a revit on each hand. First of all, the halacha might follow the opinion of the Rishonim, which is brought down the first opinion of Tosfot, that one may say the bracha until even after fulfilling the mitzvah. Even if the halacha follows the Rishonim rule that one may not do that until the hands are dried, it could be the halacha requires them to dry their hands even after a revit. So because of that sfek sveka, you still have it. So the truth is the Rishon LeZion presented the sfek sveka somewhat differently. Yabia Omer, he wrote to the halacha might follow the Rishonim, right, which is Or Zarua, the Rabbeinu Tam, Agot Oshri, the Meiri, the Ritva, that one may say the bracha over a mitzvah after fulfilling it, such as the cases after the drying the hand. And even if the halacha follows the other opinion that you have to do it beforehand, right? So maybe after drying the hands, no longer you can make a bracha. Perhaps the halacha follows the opinion that you have to dry the hands. And if you have to dry the hands, then you got it. So basically, Rav Ovadia added as a sneef the shita that you're allowed to make a bracha even after asiyatan. One more time, Rav Ovadia came and he made a sfek sveka, but his sfek sveka was a little bit different than the sfek sveka that we brought down before. His sfek sveka was, maybe by met I'm allowed to make a bracha even afterwards. I finished the mitzvah, yeah, but there's a Rishonim that hold I'm allowed to. So therefore, that's one of the sfek. The second sfek, he's going to come and he's going to say the second part of the sfek. He comes and he says it's going to be a little bit different. What's it going to be different? He says maybe be'emet you didn't do the mitzvah until after the drying the hands. So therefore, and you still need to dry the hands even after a revi'it. So because of that, it's a sfek. So either way, whichever one is a sfek, the common custom is to say the bracha after, right? Even if you did pour a revit and everything, and we do not apply safek berachol hakel in such a case, right? But what happens if you do the bracha before the Netillat Yadayim? So one more time, we explain the minhag. The minhag comes, and this is the minhag by all of Klal Yisrael, that we do it afterwards, right? But remember, after the washing, right? But before the drying. So now the question is, right? 1 second. What's going to happen now if I did the bracha before? What's going to happen? Washing. Yeah, before washing. What happens if I do the bracha? So the Bet Yosef commented that neither rationale offered for reciting the bracha after washing obligates a person to wait until after he's poured the water on his hands in order to make the bracha. Both reasons only provide a justification for a common practice, right? But it doesn't explain anything. So in Shulchan Aruch he wrote, one must make the bracha before fulfilling the mitzvah, but the custom is to say the bracha afterwards. So the Rama, however, testified that the common custom is to recite the bracha after completing the process of Netillat Yadayim before drying the hands. The Netillat added that although this is the custom, if someone wishes to make the bracha before, right, he may do so. Wow. Meaning, because if you're going to tell me that it's only just to understand what is the minhag, and the minhag of all Klal Yisrael was to do it, right, was to do it when? Afterwards. But technically speaking, if I'm allowed to do like the halacha, I'm allowed to do before. So he says, right, this is the Matiyuda. It is not necessary to follow the common custom regarding this, but he should not do so in public, because then again he's showing that he's different than anybody else. There are certain people that love to be different. We're sitting down, they want to stand. They want to stand, we're sitting down. It's always right. Very good. So what happens is that they always like to be different. So he comes and he says, if you want to do such a thing, make sure you don't do publicly, because you don't have to show that you're different. Some people, they have the mitzvah that they always love to show that they're different. Right? It doesn't matter. In the privacy of his own home, right? Right? He says, in the privacy of his own home, however, he may adopt the practice of saying the bracha before. Order in the court, please. So he says he may adopt this practice of saying the bracha beforehand, right? The Mishnah Berurah explained that according to the Rambam and other Rishonim, one must make the bracha before pouring the water on the hands, and therefore there's no basis to protest anybody that actually does so. Meaning you have a Rambam. So if you have a Rambam, you're allowed to do it. So nowadays, the universal custom is, that means again, it's universal. So just everyone should realize, universal custom, right? He comes and he says, is to say the bracha after pouring the water on the hands, and that the Kaf HaChaim says added that this is also the recommended practice according to the Arizal HaKadosh, and see also the Ben Ish Chai. So basically it comes out that even if a person would be allowed to do it before because of the Rambam, universal custom, which means that was a custom against everybody, so everybody, whether it's Apiyah Kabbalah, whether it's always going to be afterwards. So that is the minhag, and once you have the minhag, that's it.